Hey, what's going on everybody? Gus here. How you guys doing today? So we're looking at the first entry-level balanced DAC we've ever reviewed on the channel. Actually, it's the flat-out first dedicated DAC we've ever reviewed as well. So I guess you could say that we're starting off really strong. This is the Schiit Modius. Yeah, that shit. I absolutely love their marketing and the way they don't take themselves too seriously with the naming scheme of the company and all that, especially since, you know, it's borderline made to demonetize YouTube videos. I mean, really. But the whole Nordic theme of, you know, naming every single product and their lines, I find it like super really cool. Oh, and yeah, obviously for transparency's sake, Schiit did send this out for review, but as you guys are probably like super tired of hearing already, it's going to make absolutely zero difference in what you're going to be hearing or seeing from me in today's video. So let's just get it going, shall we? Alright, so the Modius is a leveled up version from the Modi, Schiit's $99 DAC. Just like the Magnus is a leveled up version of the Magni, Schiit's $99 amp. So Modi becomes Modius, Magni becomes Magnus, and you cannot say they're not at least trying to be consistent with the naming scheme of this, you know, particular ladder. Anyway, when both the Magni and the Modi level up to the Magnus and the Modius, they gain access to extra abilities, which comes accompanied by a little bump in costs, going for $199 instead of the original $99 each, obviously. And for those 100 extra bucks, what do you actually get with the Modius DAC? Well, you get a couple of things that might be a little tricky to, you know, really perceive the difference, and a couple of other things that, depending on the rest of the gear that you have, or maybe the gear that you don't have, you may actually not even be able to use. For starters, the Modi, in its normal DAC form, disregarding the multi-bit variant, comes with a chip inside, which is the AK4490. And the Modius takes a little bit of a leap and actually brings to the table the newer version, AK4493. It's absolutely not at all leaps and bounds ahead of the older version, but it is a newer one that is potentially, and I mean technically it can be marginally better. So yeah, now the Modi only accepts 3 inputs: USB, Toslink, and optical. And the Modius adds to that this, which is an AES bus, which is like basically a super fancy input method. And finally, while the Modi can only output through RCAs, the Modius can output through these 3-pin XLRs, which is that balanced thing we've been talking about so much. And as far as actual differences between them, that's basically it. Yes, the Modius is physically bigger because it needs more space inside so that you can add that AES bus input and the XLR outputs, obviously, but that's really the extent to which any comparisons between them actually goes. Oh, and I guess I should also mention that both of them, at least the Modi 3, the newer version, and the Modius, come with 2 USB micro inputs on the back. And funnily enough, only 1 USB micro cable in the box. Go figure. Now, one of those is purely for power. It actually comes with a little wall wart that you can chug at an outlet. And the other one is for both power and data. Now, that's definitely nothing game changer, but at least it allows you to choose how you're going to play with the Modius inside your setup, because you can just plug it in directly through USB to your computer or any other USB source that you want, or you can power it directly from a wall outlet and have all the actual signals coming from one of the other inputs into the Modius. So it's basically a matter of versatility, which is always a good thing. And now we get to the fun part, which is to talk about sound, and it's more specifically differences between the RCA and balanced XLR outputs. But before we jump into it, what the hell is all this about balanced outputs? What does that mean? Well, in a very simplistic way of putting it, a balanced output is going to have a ground link distinctive to each one of the connections, which is in theory going to help eliminate or lower noise floor and have the signal go from the source to the endpoint in a cleaner manner. So in theory, you're delivering a cleaner sound signal to the other side. Now, in terms of taking advantage out of that, you'd actually need a couple of extra steps, because one, you need to have an amplifier that can be fed through XLR. Second, that amplifier needs to be able to output also through balanced XLR, or 4.4 Pentacon or 2.5mm balanced. And those types of cables are also sort of specialty cables, because most headphones don't come with those. And they only work if your headphone has 2 cables, 1 for each ear cup. So that's basically a given for any IEM, but there are a lot of headphones that use like one 3.5mm connection in one of the ear cups that powers the whole thing. Headphones like those will not be able to really appreciate what a balanced system is able to accomplish. Now back to the Modius, both outputs, RCA or XLR, are going to give you excellent audio quality. And sound-wise, in terms of comparison, I have been using a Scarlett 2i2 as a DAC for a pretty long time already, and powering any of my headphone amplifiers through it, and then comparing to what the Modius can do, the difference in audio quality is tangible. It's actually palpable and perceptible really fast when you compare one to the other directly. The Modius isn't overemphasizing anything, but it is raising the ceiling by a lot of what all my headphone amplifiers can actually do in terms of what it can deliver in cleanliness, audio quality, and detail, which is a really big difference and, again, super perceptible. Testing it balanced versus unbalanced specifically on my SMSL SP200 THX amplifier, which is feeding balanced signals out to my headphones, the only real difference I could perceive was in volume, actually, which has nothing to do with the Modius. It's because the SP200 can output quite a bit more power when it goes through the XLR system within it instead of just going through the RCAs. But in terms of audio quality, any real difference that might actually be there was borderline imperceptible either most of or all of the time. And yes, I'm aware that this might actually be because of the THX amplification in the SP200, which is why I also tested all the other amplifiers I have, putting them back into the mix to try and see how I would be able to perceive those results and see if it would yield anything that much different. And it turns out it didn't. Now, you guys have probably heard this and seen this a lot all around about DACs being something that, unless you're using a really crappy one, you're probably not going to feel that much of an impact with an upgrade or a different DAC in your system unless you're reaching like toppy D90 levels of gear. And everything below that, everything coming before that, is basically going to be in one of two camps. Either it's going to have a lot of different functionalities and extra features, or it's going to be plain and simple, just a DAC that outputs like however it can, delivering good to excellent sound quality across the board to whatever you need. But even though the DAC within the Scarlett 2i2 isn't a crapshoot of a DAC, despite it not exactly being a fair comparison like apples to apples, because it's not meant for the same thing, it's not like the same stuff, it's not made for the same scenarios, right? The Scarlett 2i2 would never actually be able to hold a candle to something dedicated like a Modius. Specifically, again, because they're not in the same league. It's not exactly that much of a fair fight. Now, with all that said, would I actually recommend the Modius? Well, let's get practical about this for a moment. For starters, this is a seriously good DAC, like seriously good. It's built beautifully, like it's super tanky, and at the same time it looks smooth and fancy looking, and it's simple, and it's just, I mean, for something that looks this good and it's built this well, I expect good things from it automatically just because of how it looks. And it's good that it really delivers on what you need, and it sounds really great. But what is really special about it is the balanced part. So if you don't have gear that would be able to take advantage out of it, amplifiers, cables, and even headphones, or if you don't care about balanced outputs or don't want or plan to ever upgrade or update your setup into a balanced one, or if you don't need that AES super fancy pants pro gear, input stuff, I would actually suggest you guys look within Schiit's own roster at the Modi, because that's probably going to deliver everything that you actually need and can use. Heck, depending on what your setup is right now, how you are looking forward to upgrading it, what you want it to be in the future, even the $190 Schiit Hell is probably going to be a better, more flexible option to you, because it is an amp DAC combo that has much more power than it should, almost, because of how it looks. Just by looking at it, you wouldn't say that it's as powerful as it is. And it has the same AK4490 DAC chip inside that you would find on the Modi. On top of that, it also has a mic input. So it's basically an all-in-one solution that Schiit actually gears towards gamers because of the mic input and the whole black and red aesthetic, but that's neither here nor there. But, and this is the most important but of the entire video, if you're looking for a balanced DAC, like specifically a balanced DAC, Either because you already have gear that would be able to take advantage out of it and you want to make the most out of your setup, or because you are on the path of upgrading and updating your setup into a balanced one, you absolutely cannot go wrong with the Modius. You just can't. Again, it's pretty, it's versatile, it's beautiful built. It's going to just stay in a corner of your setup without you ever needing to be concerned about it, just doing its thing, outputting either through XLR or RCA to whatever you have hooked up to it, excellent sound quality, and you're going to be all kinds of happy with it. Oh, and also don't forget that, yeah, it's $200, so $100 more expensive than the Modi, but you are going to have one hell of a bad time trying to find anything in the DAC space for $200 that can deliver everything the Modius can. So yes, pun intended, I would 100% recommend you guys buy this shit. And that's been it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, so like, subscribe, hit the bell, and leave any comments or suggestions down below as usual if you're feeling like it. Thanks a lot for watching. This is Gus, and I'll catch you guys later.